Let me begin today by just stating the obvious. We are meeting in extraordinary times. This has been a difficult period for all of us, but my heart especially goes out to all of you at high schools across America. This is not exactly the way you pictured your senior year ending. But that's how life is. We've been here before. Think of the Americans graduating at the height of the Great Depression, or World War II. And just as the classes of 1928 and 1941 rose to unexpected challenges, so will the class of 2020. You never can be quite sure what life will throw your way. And if this crisis teaches us anything, it's that you have to be ready to roll with change. Even if we can't be together in person, I hope we move forward from this day by remembering this truth. We're all in this together. And that's true of the loved ones, the families, the guardians, and even the friends who have stood with you throughout this journey. You may not know it, but they feel the same ache that you do. They waited a long time to see you in that cap and gown. But today is still a testament to all of the sacrifices that they've made on your behalf and the love that they'll continue to send your way on your journey. So be sure to thank them. All of us have faced disappointments since this crisis began, missed out on things that we were looking forward to doing. Just the other day, I read a heartbreaking story about adults across America who had gone back to college to pursue their dream of walking across that graduation stage, a dream that this virus has ultimately shattered. My own son is a junior in high school and has missed out on his very first prom. These are memories you won't be able to replicate, and I know that this hurts. But we have to remember that we are all a part of something bigger than ourselves right now. Social distancing, self-isolation, we are choosing to do these things to save lives. It's so inspiring how the whole world has come together and taken a pause. A pause all in the name of saving lives and slowing the spread of this terrible disease. We've come together to flatten the curve. And we're learning to adjust. You may not get to cross the stage in your cap and gown, but you earned this accomplishment. You put the work in. You earned this. And no virus can take that away from you. We're in this together, class of 2020. And because we're in this together, it's falling to your generation to not just recover from this crisis, but to build a better, more fair society. You know, I can vividly remember being in your shoes not so long ago. At least it feels that way. I see myself in you. We all enter the world facing challenges and hardship. I'm really honored to be here today to speak to all of you on your graduation day in these unusual times. I want to salute each and every one of you. I also want to speak today from the heart, from my own personal experience, growing up as a Black man in America. I hope these thoughts are insightful for all of you. My message today to all of you is simple. Yes, the Black man can. A lot of you are lucky in that you have grown up in a world where a range of possibilities for your life may likely seem open to you, no matter the color of your skin. But that wasn't true for a lot of older folks. Yet, I have been fortunate that I've always found role models. I always found mentors. When I think of the Black man, I think of specific individuals who modeled to me the full range of what I could aspire to. People like my grandfather, born a little more than a century ago in 1915, a time when few planes flew in the sky and no easy time for men of color. But despite his circumstances, he did not allow his station in life to deter him away from achieving the American dream. And he did it all without a high school diploma or college degree, doors that were largely shut to him. But that door was kicked in a bit more to the next generation of Black men and Black women, like my mother, for example. She raised two African American men to be resilient and ready for life's challenges. My brother Christopher overcame incredible odds growing up in the 1990s, the height of the so-called war on drugs, which so often looked more like a war on young Black men. But he persisted. My brother went on to law school and became a state director for the Louisiana Department of Justice. What I want you to know is that these individuals are no more special than you. What they shared was determination, a sense that they can. They had the ability, the power, and the skill to face whatever roadblocks life placed in their path. More than any financial inheritance, that is the great gift that they have left for me. It is because of their example that I knew I had nothing to be afraid of in this life. It's not enough to rage against the system and just give up. And I might add, it's not enough to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and look out for yourself. You have an obligation to reach back and to do your part in correcting the system. Both of those obligations, doing well for yourself and doing right by your community, require an education. Yes, we have seen incredible progress across the board in recent decades, and yet the hard work continues. In recent years, we have seen the divisions in our society, particularly between races, exacerbated, especially by irresponsible figures serving in high positions of influence. You can probably guess who I'm referring to. Any illusion that we are living in a colorblind society is quickly shattered with each new sickening news report of a young Black man whose life is tragically cut short. Practically every parent that I know has had the talk with their Black son. Not the birds and the bees talk, but the talk of how to handle even a routine encounter with a police officer. This is not normal. We see those scars in the wealth gap between whites and Blacks, even sadly in the hospital beds. These gaps take root early. Clearly, our comprehensive response to these challenges must begin in the classroom. As the author Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote, "No matter what the professional talkers tell you, I never met a Black boy who wanted to fail." We must ensure that our educational system is a doorway to opportunity, not just a waiting room to our criminal justice system. Think back. What was my key message to you today, Black boys and young men? The Black man can. But he only can with an education that serves as a doorway to opportunity. Right now, we have our work cut out for us. Only 17% of Black men hold a bachelor's degree. That's compared to 30% of all men. The number of Black college students in 2017 was estimated at 3.3 million, a decrease from 3.6 million just 7 years earlier. I'm sorry, but that is not a drop in the right direction. So when you enroll in college, not if, but when, you will already be in a very distinguished group. I know you may have doubt right now as to what the next year will look like, but I know you will find your way. You may need to start your college journey from afar, but you will learn so much by looking inward. You know, I was lucky. I grew up in an environment in which everyone in my life pushed me to have high expectations of myself. I had my grandfather, my mother, and my brother to emulate in their examples of not settling for anything less than their very best. It is because of their example that I have learned to not be afraid of new challenges. Like when I became an author for the very first time. And let me tell you, writing can be a tough slog. But I persevered because I knew that I could, and also because I knew I had a message to share. The end result was my book, Dream It, Plan It, do it. My goal with the book was to leave the reader with something very actionable, a roadmap that they could come away with and begin implementing, begin putting into motion in order to achieve their goals in life, whatever those goals might be. In the book, I discussed 50 characteristics that set successful people apart, 50 traits that indicate a person who is truly doing it. So read the book for all of them, class of 2020. But today, I want to highlight a few that I think are especially important. 1. Create a strong motivational purpose. 2. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Next, have integrity. Also, strive for excellence. There's nothing worth doing if you aren't giving it your all. So don't cut corners. Let your work reflect your highest conception of yourself. Also, have mentors. Your journey won't look exactly the same as anyone else's, but there's so much you can learn from mentors. You can benefit from the wisdom of their mistakes without having to make those same mistakes yourself. And finally, be accountable. Be accountable to yourself. Are you making the most of your gifts? Ultimately, there is no one higher for you to answer to than yourself. College is a challenging time. It's an exciting time of discovery, but it can also challenge your conception of your own identity. When I was young, my mother had a book that showcased famous African Americans from throughout history, featured on postage stamps. People like Martin Luther King, Parks, Owens, Rustin, and even my favorite, Harriet Tubman. Icons, giants. They seemed fixed in history like gods. But they were regular people, and just as they blazed a trail forward, so can we today. Anything seems impossible until it is done. Think of what seems impossible to you today. What aspiration looks to be out of your reach? Let me tell you, it will seem so inevitable when you look back on it later. I personally think that we're just getting started, class of 2020. We all have a voice, and we can all take a stand against bigotry and racism, not only in individual hearts, but in our institutions. It's no surprise that the virus has disproportionately impacted people of color. What does that say about our healthcare system and economy? And what will you do, class of 2020, to change the status quo? Now, I know that that's a lot to ask of you. It's sometimes said that we as Black men have to be twice as good to get ahead. It isn't enough to work hard and focus on your studies. You are also expected to be an example, to be a role model, to blaze the path forward for those who come after you. I personally think, again, we are just getting started. This generation is not going to settle for anything less than our very best. We're not going to accept a system that tilts against us. I know we are going to see a lot of trailblazers in the years ahead. Michael Eric Dyson, a noted Georgetown professor of African American studies, once said that yes, Barack Obama was Jackie Robinson. He was the first of his kind. Now we're waiting for Willie Mays, and Willie had a hell of a swing. I wish for you in the years ahead the courage to follow your interests and your passions, wherever they may lead, even if you find yourself in some unexpected places. I hope you will lose yourself in the pursuit of your passions, passions you may not even recognize yet. All of the progress we take for granted today is because of the sacrifices that generations before us made. We stand on their shoulders, and we have our own obligation now to do our part for the next generation. Scripture tells us that to whom much is given, much shall be required. These are extraordinary times, but this is an extraordinary class. You're never going to forget this time in your lives. And even though we're apart today, we stand together. And I can't wait to see what you will do next. We're proud of each of you, and we are here to support you on the next journey ahead. Congratulations, class of 2020. Thank you very much.